that I've been at, you're never just doing one thing. Like right now at my current client, I'm doing both Java and Ruby development, as well as database development. And I find it to be impossible to succeed if I'd only focus on just one aspect of that. And I think more and more places, especially when we get into mobile spaces or embedded spaces or anything like that, because in general, development is moving away from the desktop and more into some of the more different spaces and that kind of stuff, is there's multiple languages that are needed to support it. Where you have your servers, you have your user interfaces, and being able to program in different languages, as well as understand the paradigms of those languages, such as between programming in a dynamic or statically typed language, between object-oriented and functional. I find it's just really helpful for developing.
And there's also, I guess to that specific question, I see two different paths. One I'm not as familiar with anymore, and that's the ICC internal projects, where there's a lot more control. I'm out at the state of Ohio right now, and so a lot of our technology is driven by what's supported, by what policy is set down. But that doesn't mean there aren't still choices that we expect software engineers to make. And that's kind of where I spend my day. So my recommendation for anybody in that position where you're out at an enterprise or a non-internal project is find out what their 12-month, 18-month plan is and be a part of it. Even if you're not, if you can't get on the planning portion of that, talk to people, ask. It's important. It's going to do a few things. It's going to make you look like a team player, and hopefully because you are. But it's going to give you the tools that you need to prepare. So I was out at BMW for a while, and they were making a big shift into web services. And they said, we want somebody to go out and document web services in a way that we want everybody to be. I happen to be only one of 2 or 3 people who did that. And so that got the John Kreider brand elevated, also ICC, and everybody was associated on my team. That's just keeping your ears open and looking for what's out there. Kind of in the same way that you do with a conference, right? That big radar. Take a look at what's going on in the landscape around you and get involved. Not just for what's due the next week, the next deployment, whatever it might be, but find out what's going on at your enterprise. Because even if you can't influence that, like I don't have a big ability to bring on Ruby, even if it's going to solve their problems the best way possible. It's just not what they're supporting. But I do know, I've heard talk of mobile, so I can support that in some way. I can keep bringing that up. I can be out in front of my clients saying, you mentioned this, you just mentioned a problem. I think this mobile might be your solution if you want to take a look at it. But it requires reaching out.
There are a lot of new technologies in the code mesh over there, but the point is like which one to go with. So, and what will benefit us, what our clients are looking for, what my personal goal is. And so taking all those different perspectives into the mind, it's very, so picking up those technologies becomes very sensitive in terms when you consider what your goal is at this particular point. Maybe it may happen that, okay, just like say mobile technologies that we are working on. So now within the mobile, there are a lot of different options over here. I have worked on 2 cross-platform solutions and native. And I see that clients are looking for the cross-platform solution, but they have vendor 1. And this client is looking for the cross-platform solution that has vendor 2. Though if it is native means, okay, we can focus on things, but if it's product specific, then it becomes very challenging because you don't have a training on that part and they need people who are trained or who are ready to go to the training on that side. I think the same comes in Java, PHP, Ruby, and all the Python and all the other different technologies. So what actually our clients are looking for? I agree from that being said that we want to see what the clients are trying to do within next year or so. And from that will help us. Even if we are not able to do it, we can recommend somebody else who knows that. But the things that intrigued me over there, some of the things was, rather than the technology, was the process part. One was test-driven development. That was very interesting, that I found it. I know a couple of guys from Nationwide who had done that before, and there are videos of that, they have tried to chase them. And continuous integration, and that's very critical. And from my past experiences and in the existing, even from the existing project, if there is no proper continuous integration for the large projects, that becomes very tough to manage. And that not only includes just one technology, because in some cases the projects have different tiers, and each tier has a different set of technologies. So how we are going to integrate and build them together so that they can build successfully and talk to each other successfully. So this was another thing that attracted me a lot. And UX, definitely, UX's style is, iOS has changed everything, Apple brand. So now everybody is behind the UX, and I like that thing because the UIs are now very different from that. And one of the another thing that intrigued me was unit testing. Unit testing, that was awesome. The way they presented it, they automated it, and that was the best thing, because while doing your build and at the same time doing the unit testing, I think that takes away a lot of the problems and issues that you may have in the project, and identify the folks or the future issues that you may see on the project. So they had the different styles from what I worked on before, but that's what the positive thing is. So that's where we go over there to learn something that we don't know what we have. So technologies come and go, but the processes, that's what my observation was. That's the one key driving factor with some people's experience around different projects that comes on and helps and fill in the gap that we may be missing in the existing process.
Harry, what are some of the new frameworks that are out there that people are kind of excited about and that they are talking about?
Frameworks from which?
Either on the mobile side or on the Java or .NET side. I mean, you guys can. I mean, it's a general question to all of you. So,
I think on the mobile side, the frameworks are the same. That one we hear at all, the same thing. And from the testing side, they had the JUnit and all. So, but one of the another thing was I was talking to somebody and he was doing all the monkey runner for Android testing and everything. Though I have not seen many folks using it, but that was pretty interesting thing, like how you can automate your mobile testing and run those tests and play with all the different activities and so on. So different frameworks, but more at the end it will depend upon what the client has and what they're looking for. So, and all of them are like open source frameworks, and they are readily available for us to use. The only thing is that if the client is ready to do that, I definitely can.
anything on the cloud side that you guys you saw interesting?
I think on the cloud side, what I saw was there was one cloud session at the start, but .NET was leading on that side. They were the presenter mostly, presenters, but I'm not someone else leading the presentation side. And they were presenting the Azure cloud and everything, so that was good. So what I was missing, they had something on Amazon over there, but I think they didn't come over there. But I'd love to understand their frameworks that can be used. So Azure, I went to that session, I attended it. I attended IT1 at M3, and that was pretty good. So I like that, so how they're maturing, but from the mobile space, they still have to go a little bit, allow the mobile devices to interact with their cloud system.
One area that I was hoping to see more of was the emerging trend of big data. I mean, they got plenty of cloud coverage, and that's kind of moving in that direction. But just how do you handle these massive parallel computing problems? They've talked about Hadoop, I think, in the past. There's a lot of NoSQL platforms, like CouchDB and MongoDB and things of that nature that we talked about. And there's always the buzzword factor. It's like, oh, what's the latest greatest now? And next year it'll be different. So I try to, anything I notice during the conference, I'll kind of go, okay, what is this? What's it about? Where does it fit in the ecosystem? And then just kind of keep that in mind. So if it keeps popping up, I think I need to research this a little bit more. and just keep going that knowledge. And not only the topics, but also the people that are connected to those topics. Who do I network with? But even within ICC, I think this cross-pollination involvement like this, where we've got multiple disciplines, I think that's an important activity going forward, to where we can start to pick up on things that we might miss if we're just so single language focused like you said. So there's a concept, if you know the definition of the word serendipity, it's unexpected results that you can't possibly plan for. But there's a meme called manufactured serendipity, which seems kind of contradictory, but it's putting in place all the factors that you can to get unexpected positive results. You can't predict what they're going to be, but if you do certain activities, you can encounter some unexpected things.
I think one thing in common, like among all four of you, is that you guys, and that kind of separates you from a lot of us, is you guys are truly passionate about software development. No matter what your client assignment is, you guys have a hobby of software development. Hari works on SOA and VPN, but spends a lot of time on mobile development on his own time. Gabby spends a lot of time on gaming on her own time, and that kind of led to where you are today as kind of leaders in the community and sitting here as panelists. So what recommendations do you have for developers here to kind of start their journey, being passionate about software development and someday be where you are today?
On my side, I choose the second technology as a kind of a distracting factor to get away from what we are doing right now, so that it takes your mind off from what you're doing right now and different technology versus, and you can passionately work on something that you love to do. But at the same time, choosing that secondary technology is very critical, because what we are doing is we are spending our precious time and energy on that technology. If it's just throwaway kind of a thing, we can pick something what we like. But if it is something like secondary technology and you see that can become an additional career path, add career path to your existing career, or kind of a additional support to your existing career, I think I would suggest choose that kind of a thing. Because it may happen that within ICC itself, if you'll see that today we are working on a project, and suddenly some other projects come along and you will say, you know what, that project, I know this person has worked on this person has worked on this, and those we can be really good candidate for this particular. So that's what I kind of try to do. Choose secondary technology, keep yourself distracted, and next time you go back to work, you are fresh. At the same time, you have learned a lot on something new.
For me, for learning new technologies, a lot of what I do is just find, for me, I use game development as an engine for that. It's like, I want to make a game based around this. I use that as an excuse to start playing with new languages, new technology. If you're wanting to be more passionate or get more involved or learn more, I would definitely recommend like reaching out to the various conferences that happen here locally. Path to Agility, Stir Trek, which sold out in I think 5 minutes this year. There's a number of user groups that happen here locally that are free. Go to those, meet with people. That I think is